Wait, did Jesus really say all Christians should hate their family members? It's in the Bible, right? I have a question for Christians who have actually read the Bible. So if you've not read the Bible, shift one side. Okay, maybe you can like and share, but shift one side. So this is Luke chapter 14, verse 26. It says, this is Jesus talking now, right? If anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. So let's break it down. But before we break it down, let's look at a similar verse so you can see why many Christians make mistake in this verse. This is a similar verse in Matthew 10:37. It says, anyone who loves their father and mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son and daughter more than me is not worthy of me. So Jesus is saying that if you love your son or daughter more than him, Jesus, you're not worthy of him. And he's saying if you love your father and mother more than him, you're not worthy of him. This is the one that many pastors like to explain, but they often avoid this other one. They say, if anyone comes to me, that if you go to Christ, but by the time you're going to Christ, you don't hate. This is not love, but you say hate. Hate is an active word. You don't hate your father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters. Yes, even your own life. Such a person cannot be my disciple. So you can't follow Christ if you don't hate your people. So, does that make sense? Is there any condition in which I will hate my father and mother? Lie, can never happen. This is John 14:31. But he comes so that the world may learn that I love the Father and do exactly what my Father has commanded me. The same Jesus that is saying you should hate your people is now saying that he loves his Father. And he does exactly what his Father said. So Jesus is saying he loves his Father, but for you to follow him, you have to hate your own father.
Hi, my name is Colby, and this is Doctrine in Minutes. And truth is one. So it is either what he is saying is true or what I'm about to tell you is true. So let's get into it. Anytime you are studying a verse, make sure you first have a proper understanding of the chapter within which the verse is. So he talked about Luke chapter 14, verse 26, right? Luke 14:26 reads, if any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and his wife and children and brethren and sisters and yea, and his own life, he cannot be my disciple. That is what is in verse 26. But what led us there? So you have to go back a bit and then start reading to understand the context. So in this video, we'll go back to where it all started. I think it started from verse 16. So Jesus had been teaching, and then all of a sudden he started telling them a story. We don't know whether it's a parable for sure, because there was no mention of it as a parable, but he just started saying. And then verse 16 says that a certain man made a great supper and bade many. So this man invited a lot of people. All the people he invited didn't show up. One gave an excuse that he had freshly bought oxen and he had to take care of them. Another gave an excuse that he had freshly bought the land or some land and he had to take care of it. Another person also said that he had freshly married and he had to take care of it. And this is normal in our everyday life. So this was supposed to teach us to prioritize God, to put Jesus first. That's why he says that count the cost of discipleship. Count the cost before you set out to build. You need to know that, hey, my decision to follow Christ means that I have to deprioritize certain things, right? And that is what the verse is saying. Okay, now we have understood it contextually, but granted, this is not enough. Now let's narrow it down to the word that was used in the verse. The word that is used here is hate. In Greek is misio. That's the transliteration, misio. The word misio is not different from the word that is rendered hated in the Old Testament. So in the Old Testament, the word that is rendered hated is sin. That's the word hated. Or I think others also call it sunny. But either sunny or sin. That's the transliteration, right? You can see it in the book of Genesis. Jacob loved Rachel, right? And not Leah. He was deceived with Leah, but he had to live with it. And the Bible says that then Jacob loved Rachel, and when the Lord saw that he had hated Leah. So the word hated was also used there. But does it mean that the hate was that there was some animosity that was demonstrated, or Jacob actually, was rude or was mean to Leah? Was that the meaning? No, that's not the meaning. Okay. In Hebrew literature, the word hate, or the word that is saying, there are two meanings to it. There is the literal meaning, and then there is the figurative meaning. Most often it's the figurative meaning that was used. Okay. So it's just like I'm writing something and I say, James kicked the bucket. And when you read this, within the context, you will know whether it meant James literally kicked the bucket or it meant James died. This because the figurative meaning of kick the bucket is die. And then the literal meaning of kick the bucket is to hit it. Okay. So when you are reading such a verse and you come across a word like hate, you need to find out what it means in the Hebrew, and to even know whether it was a figurative expression or a literal word. The word was used literally, right? Because if it is a figurative expression and you take it literally, you are going to be wrong. You are going to be wrong, obviously. It will affect your whole understanding. Imagine to kick the bucket means to die, and then you read it in the Bible, and then you don't take it as it is to die, but you think that it is James actually kicked the bucket, and you are preaching this. Can you even imagine? It's really interesting, right? Yeah, that's the same thing. So the word hate in the Old Testament, which is sunny, is a figurative expression, and it means to love less. To love less. To love less, not a compound word, but it is if it's a compound word, then you can say that it's negation. You know that word that when you say aimless, it means that you have no aim. No. But to aim less means you have reduced your aim. And that's the meaning. It's not loveless to negate it. It's love less, a reduced, portion of love, right? So he's saying that Jacob loved Rachel, but he loved Leah less. You remember another time God also said that Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. It was the same saying that was used, the Hebrew word saying that was used, or it was rendered in the English language as hate. But the actual word is love less, a reduced portion, right? When you come back to the Luke chapter 14, verse 26, the word hate was used, and the Greek is misio. And the misio also means, it's a figurative expression. It also means to love less. It's saying that love me more and love less other things, and not to deliberately hate your mother, your father, your sister, because that will mean that Jesus is contradicting what God said. But it says, love me more and love other things less. Priority. Okay. Now, Matthew also recorded this in the book of Matthew chapter 10, verse 37. The difference between Luke and Matthew is that Luke wasn't an eyewitness. Luke was not a disciple of Jesus directly. Okay. He was not part of Jesus' disciples or Jesus' apostles. If you read Luke chapter 1, verse 1 to 3, Luke tells us how he was able to write the gospel that he wrote. Okay. And then it had to be he collecting what others had written and putting them together so that we will properly understand. But Matthew was an eyewitness. Matthew was a direct apostle of Jesus Christ. And let's look at what Matthew said in Matthew chapter 10, verse 37. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. So he had actually expressed it the way Jesus meant it. He used the word love and used the word more comparative. Like I'm saying, if you love your parents more than me, then there is an issue. Love me more than your parents. Love your parents, love your sisters, but love me more. And still, it speaks to priorities. Again, in Exodus chapter 20, where God gave the commandments to Moses, if you look at the structure of the whole commandment, you realize that God again prioritizes himself, right? Which is consistent with what Jesus was saying, that he must be first, right? So in Exodus chapter 20, verse 1, let's look at it. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. So again, you see, he is first. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above or that is in the earth beneath. And it continues to say, thou shalt not bow because I am a jealous God. And it continues to say, do not mention my name in vain and all that, right? It was the verse 12, right? Where the mention of parents, honoring the parents, was made. So you see it. Verse 12 says, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. So the Old Testament, and particularly the commandments, the structure actually teaches that God must be prioritized. Why don't you love God? Because he created you. He formed you in the belly. He knew you before you were born, before this world existed, before the foundation of this world was laid. He had you in mind. In fact, it was his decision for you to be here, else you wouldn't be here. So why don't you love him?